All right, guys. This might be the final story. I don't know. I want to try to extend this out a little bit longer, but anyway, like the video. It helps us out in the algorithm, and it won't cost you a thing. So yeah. Saga Jetty is that guy is funny. He's funny. He posted this tweet on X. It said just to quell any rumors of a staff coup, the person who wrote this headline is me. Okay. Why? Because I knew many of my haters and losers sadly of which there are many could not resist clicking on it. And when you think you're owning me, I win. Like, okay. I mean, yeah, Glen Greenwald owns you. Like he took you to school, man. Like you said, yeah, he took you to school. Um, I think this is a petty tweet right here. Like, oh, you told the editors that came up with that the title of that video to say I did it. You know, I told the editor that to name it like that. Yeah, right. But okay, that's the tweet. So and Katie Happer crazy. Katie Happer said LOL. Yeah, that's what I get from it too. Like really, really, really. And then Ryan Graham um, said something too. So yeah, so that's that. Now I'm gonna get to the video of Glenn Greenwald and Saagar Jetty going at it. Yeah, it's a doozer. I just gonna tell you that. So all right. So all right, here we go, guys.
What do you make of that argument?
Ah, ads.
Join Planet Fitness today and save 20.
Hold on, ads. God, these ads are unbearable. Here you go, guys.
Investigation on intelligence reports and a lot of work by ICE officers.
Glenn, what do you make of that argument?
First of all, it's kind of weird because the older you get, the more you realize that history really does just repeat itself, and not by century, but even by decade. We're back in 2002, where we're hearing all of the arguments from the Bush and Cheney administration that they have the right to do anything they want to people they and they alone have decided are terrorists. And that includes putting people into prison indefinitely with no due process, torturing them, kidnapping them, rendering them, whatever else they wanted to do. And when people objected and said, wait a minute, these people don't even have an opportunity to go into court and disprove or contest the accusations that you made against them, that they're not part of a terrorist organization. What we heard was, oh, don't worry, we vetted these people, and we can assure you that these people are not just terrorists, but they're the worst of the.
Yeah, like I heard too that they claim that some of these migrants are part of gangs when one migrant had a tattoo of of somebody with autism and another one was a gay some got something to do with LGBTQ or something like that. Like, bro, that's not a gang tattoo. Like, what the fuck? Like, why are you entrapping these people? No, ICE is just trying to make their quota. That's what it is, bro. They don't care who it is, give them any excuse. So, yeah.
Worst. As it turns out, many, according to Colin Powell's chief of staff, Larry Wilkinson, most ended up not being part of any terrorist organization. They were picked up randomly. The intelligence was wrong. Sometimes vindictively, people reported them to the U.S. military. All kinds of reasons the government makes mistakes. And that's the whole point of due process, is we don't trust just one branch of government to do something as cataclysmic as throw people into a dungeon for life without even bothering to have to present evidence that they're guilty, and giving the people who are so accused the opportunity to contest it. And the other point that he made that makes absolutely no sense, and a police officer should know this better than anyone, is due process is most necessary for people who are accused of horrific crimes. Laken Riley's killers didn't just get thrown in a dungeon because the government decided that they were guilty. They were given lawyers, formal charges, went through all of our judicial procedures, were found guilty in a court of law, and sentenced to life in prison without parole. So the idea that, of course, no murderers, no kidnappers, no rapists give their victims due.
So I guess because they claim that these people aren't legalized citizens in this country. I'm talking about the migrants, Like let's just treat them like cattle and just ship them back to El Salvador, which that is a fucking slave camp. I heard in El Salvador. Like, so yeah. Fuck due process, man. That was really what the Trump administration wants to do. They just want to just ship them the fuck out of the United States. Like that's what they want to do. Like, but don't you realize that we have laws? Like they supposed to have due process, bro. What? Like, I tell you, man. Like, yeah. But this didn't start under Trump. To be honest with you, like this happening, like he said, under George Bush. So he started under Bush. See, like Obama. I'm pretty sure Obama and Biden as well. So, all right, let me continue.
Process, but we still give due process to the people who are accused of criminality before we can punish them, because the founders knew first and foremost that humans are not infallible and they're going to make mistakes. And we've made mistakes all the time, even with due process. We've convicted people wrongly and unjustly. Imagine how many mistakes get made when you just hand over the power to government officials in the executive branch to declare who is not guilty, with no opportunity for the person who's accused to disprove the charges. And that is exactly what's happening.
Glenn, I think what's made this so difficult for me is it feels dispositionally as if the law is something that is being almost used in a process way, not just due process, but it's one where it feels as if the Constitution and the law seems to apply only for deportation, but it didn't necessarily apply, let's say, when people were being allowed into the country and then were victimizing people who were here. It does feel, at least to me, as if this argumentation and this love of due process, etc., only comes into play whenever it's the, supposedly sympathetic group here, let's say, of migrants, when we don't necessarily hear the same for, let's say, people who are coming here illegally, committing crimes. Then it's like, oh, well, of course, this is something that is naturally to happen. They have a lower, let's say, crime.
Like, Saagar, I'm finna school you too. Like, do you know that immigrants that come here commit the least amount of crime than naturally born U.S. citizens? Like, okay, like, what are you talking about? Like, the Trump administration literally saying, like, fuck due process. Like, our excuse is they gangs, they this, they that. Like, dude, like, come on, man. Like, really? Like, Glen finna cook them. Like, here we go.
Crime rate than the natural born population, the implication that you shouldn't even worry about. So for people like me who have really complicated feelings about this stuff, how should we feel watching this and trying to balance those two issues of wanting, let's say, mass deportation, the selective application, let's say, of concern? What would you say to those critics?
Well, the whole reason Trump has made this a signature issue of mass deportation, and he won twice, and polls clearly show, in addition to that people support mass deportation, was because the idea was that people entering our country illegally have done something wrong, have done something criminal. So the idea is,
and also too, I'm gonna add that, also taking their jobs and their social safety net. Yeah, can't forget about that too.
Because they didn't give us due process, or they didn't get due process, we should now relinquish due process, is essentially to say, let's copy and replicate and adopt the worst abuses of the policies that Donald Trump for a decade has been most harshly criticizing. I think the bigger point, though, is that when Donald Trump has stood up for a decade now and argued for mass deportation, typically mass deportation, not just typically, but almost in every case, means that you take somebody who is in your country illegally and you send them back to their country of origin. You send them back to where they're a citizen or where they came from. That is always how deportation works. The reason this has become so controversial is because the Trump administration is not picking up Venezuelans or others and sending them back to their country of origin. They're sending them on purpose to a third country that these people have nothing to do with. They're not citizens of El Salvador. Most of them, if not all of them, have never been to El Salvador. And the reason we're sending them to El Salvador is because we know they have a repressive prison system, probably the worst in the world.
Yes. Yeah, I said earlier, El Salvador has basically a damn slave camp, man. Basically, the conditions in there is horrific. It's catastrophic. So yeah. Trump knows what he's doing. Let's send him to the one. Let's send him to Gitmo, which Gitmo is known for torturing people, and let's send him to El Salvador, where it's a damn near slave encampment. So yeah, he's right.
Where they're not only going to be humiliated and tortured and stripped of all human rights, but it's extremely unlikely that they're ever going to leave. So this is a radical departure from what we think of and call deportation. This is consigning somebody not just to life in prison, but to one of the worst prisons, life in one of the worst prisons that people very rarely leave. And if you don't believe that the government, of due process, of a hearing, of an opportunity to disprove the accusations, not before we deport them back to their country of origin, but before we send them on purpose to a hellhole of a prison that they're likely never going to leave, prison for life, without even an inkling of a process, a requirement the government show the evidence and the opportunity of the person so accused to contest it, then you don't believe in due process at all. Then you simply believe in an authoritarian government that can just accuse people in secret of being guilty, and that's the end of the story. And that has never been the founding value of the.
Yeah, to be honest with you, you can say that with not only with migrants, with black people as well. Why are black people filled up in prisons? We are 50% of people in prison is black, but we make up 13% of the country. You got to say to yourself, did the people, the black folks that they jailed, did they have due process? You could apply that to everything. Not just immigration when it comes to these migrants. Um, you know, yeah. So, let's go back here.
United States. You mentioned the Benjamin Franklin quote that I had cited where he said, it is more just to allow 100 guilty people to go free than to punish wrongfully a single innocent person. That comes from Blackstone, which is the foundation of American and British law. Thomas Jefferson is attributed to say something very similar, but certainly all of his writings and all of the founders' writings. That was the idea. Let me just give you a quick example. We impose limits on police officers that make it more difficult for them to catch violent criminals. They're not, for example, allowed to just burst into houses where they suspect that somebody guilty might be there. They first have to go to a court, get a warrant, and we require that even knowing that sometimes it's going to mean that violent criminals get away because
also they need to abolish no-knock warrants because that what happened to Breonna Taylor. So, yeah, no-knock warrants is ridiculous, but let me continue.
We're putting barriers in front of the police, but we're a country of liberty. We've decided we would rather have those liberties, even if there's a cost to it. And due process is exactly that. And it's something foundational to the United States, and it can't be waived simply because people are frustrated with illegal immigration, especially when it's not sending them back to their home country, but putting them into a horrific prison in a dictatorial country in El Salvador, where you've seen all the video of things that they do to these people that would never be permitted in the United States.
And there's also that famous quote, people who trade liberty for security will get neither. And just to sketch in how that unfolded in this moment, we can just very quickly run through a couple of the examples, because we're talking about the question on principle, but also in practice, we see exactly what unfolded. Roll A2 really quickly. This is just this gay barber who is like, we're asking people to just use their common sense. Does this dude look like a thug from the Tren de Aragua gang? It's like, no.
He looks like James Charles, like one of those gay beauty influencers.
I think he is a makeup
artist. Tren de Aragua is welcoming with open arms.
Yeah, that guy is surely a thug, man. Yeah, he a thug. He's a criminal. Yeah, send him to El Salvador. Yeah, it's a clown show.
arms openly gay, flamboyantly gay hairdressers who fled Venezuela claiming persecution on LGBT grounds? You think that's a likely member of a Tren de Aragua gang?
And then,
or shouldn't there at least be a hearing about that first to determine if he's guilty?
Let's hear the charges. So then A3, this is one we wrote about over at Dropsite. Reyes Barrios, he's a professional goalkeeper who protested the Maduro regime's kicking off his opposition from the presidential ballot. He had a hearing scheduled for April 17th to make his case for political asylum. He was actually removed from maximum security prison after his family was able to get an affidavit from the tattoo artist that was like, no, this crown is related to Real Madrid, his favorite soccer team. And so that ICE is finally like, okay, we'll let him out of maximum security prison. Very quickly, they just end up deporting him and taking him out. DHS stood behind that one.
That's wow. That guy was an American citizen because he fit the description of a migrant and he had a tattoo that goes with the soccer team he played for. Oh yeah. Let's just deport him. Yeah, let's get him out. This is insane, man. And we're debating whether or not these people should have rights. Like, what the fuck? Oh my God, man.
Comment to us saying, we feel like the tattoo was gang related. At the same time, and you can put up A4 while I'm talking about this, they have acknowledged, actually, this is just a bunch of other people who was their family are saying, no, these are just tattoos. These guys have nothing to do with gangs. DHS has said 101 of the people.
Yeah, the other one he didn't show was a praying tattoo. This one, this is the artistic one. Yeah, the artistic tattoo. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I think his family member has autism. That's not a gang tattoo. Oh God, man. I really do hope these people, man, file. I mean, they need to come together and file some class auction lawsuits against this motherfucking shit, because this is ridiculous. Now, you're an ICE agent. You shouldn't even do this, but you're allegedly looking for certain tattoos of a gang that resemble you. That means you're part of a gang, and you look at their ribbon with the different colors on it, and it's a puzzle. Like, you probably don't know it's autism, but just common sense. Like, you ain't gotta know what that stands for. Just say like, no, they ain't part of no gang. Okay, jeez Louise, man.
This is for his autistic brother. This is like the autistic, like, awareness and acceptance symbol. 101 of the people that were deported, they don't claim we're in a gang. Yet every time we come with evidence that this guy is not in a gang, DHS responds, they're actually in a gang. Now, I don't really have a question because I agree with you on this one. I'll just be a potted plant for the rest of this conversation. Just wanted to add that.
No, I think this is all
details.
fair. And this is what I think makes the difficulty. Again, I'll just explain. For me, I feel as if that the law was not applied for several years. Millions of people illegally entered our country. And, often the discussion for those years, if we brought up someone like Laken Riley or the victim of crime in that respect, it was, that is simply the consequence of, Ryan, let's say in your case, of our meddling in Venezuela, almost as if we deserve it, right, for that to happen. Or lawlessness of not, taking the names of many of these people, or not pursuing deportation or detainers, or the willful either expulsion from, let's say, from prison without bail. And it seems that as if here we can highlight these examples, of course, of which it is clear that there were like terrible mistakes. And I don't even disagree with you, Glenn, on a human level. And I think I am coming around to your point of view. It just does feel in terms of, let's say, the sympathy and who we decide to look at these things has eroded much of the discourse around this. And so both at an emotional level and also with Ryan's what Ryan is saying, because I'm sure there are a lot of people who listen to this who probably initially had my response as well. What do you think that they need to hear both about not only equal application of the law, but why it is so important what you're saying?
So I do absolutely agree that we have democratically ratified a program of mass deportation. There's all polls showing across political lines that people believe that the massive inflow of people into our country who aren't documented, who have no right to be here, who cross the border illegally, is a huge problem and needs to be rectified. And again, I think Trump has won a Democratic mandate to mass deport.
But you gotta ask yourself though, like people think that, but the problem is that you gotta ask yourself, why are many of these people coming to our border? People don't understand that the United States has destabilized Central America for a while now, like infiltrated their government to steal their resources, just destroy these people's lives. So these people are desperate and they're willing to take that long journey to the southern border. And yes, some of them cross illegally, which I really don't give a fuck. My stance has always been like this. I think all you should have open borders. Period. Like we shouldn't like like I mean we should have open borders. Period. Like I just don't understand that. But you know, I'm just saying it's like I mean people don't understand. People have been propagandized to believe that these people coming over here, they criminals, they thugs, they taking our jobs, all anything negative. People take that shit and run with it. I mean, I hear that from all sides. The people I've been around with, hang with, they say the same thing too. So, yeah, like, once people understand that, like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah. So, yeah.
Deport people who are in the United States illegally and to close the border. I don't have any doubts about that, whether I agree with that policy or not. That is the Democratic decision. There is a process in place, though, that is designed to do that. You can deport people. Obama and Trump in his first term and Biden in his first term deported a lot of people, and you can deport a lot more legally using the legal mechanisms that are set up. The problem with Biden was not that there aren't legal processes sufficient to deport a lot of people. The problem is the Democrats had no political will to do so. They were controlled by pro-immigration groups. But if you want to, you can abide by the law and mass deport at the same time and minimally safeguard human rights and the ability of people not to be wrongly accused. And I don't think we would even be having this debate, Saagar, if not for the fact that Trump gets in. There hasn't really been mass deportations, by the way.
No, there has not.
The number.
That's very important. There has not been mass
deportations. And what we're getting instead are distractions from kind of exploiting the idea of mass deportation. First to go after.
Yeah, because judges basically told them that you can't do that.
People who are in the country legally, green card holders and visas, who are being expelled for the crime of criticizing and protesting against Israel, which I know you do not support. And so part of that is an exploitation for a completely different issue. But the other part is deportations are not about sending people to prison for life. We've never regarded life in prison as an appropriate punishment for people who enter our country, especially in a country that's not theirs. That is only appropriate prison for people who are proven to have committed violent crimes. And there's a lot of doubt about whether the people sent to El Salvador were in fact guilty. And even if there wasn't doubt, even if they all seemed kind of guilty based on this very tenuous art of interpreting people's tattoos, which, by the way, liberals did with Pete Hegseth in a way that turned out to be completely misguided. Yeah. There was a New Yorker fact checker, Talia Levine, who accused an ICE agent of having a Nazi tattoo. She had to quit because she misinterpreted the tattoo. These are very, very thin reeds on which to proclaim somebody guilty. If it had just been the kind of deportation that Trump was promising, I don't think there'd be a controversy. The problem is that these are not deportations in the traditional sense of the word. And we should have learned from the war on terror that if the government says, trust us, everyone we're punishing is guilty, you don't need a hearing, you don't need to see the evidence, we know for sure people are going to be wrongfully accused. And there's a big difference between just sending them back to their home country, although that can be pretty devastating for people here a long time or married to an American citizen, as Mahmoud Khalid is. But it's still way worse to send them to a dungeon in El Salvador with no due process.
Glenn, what is the legal process that the government has to follow?
All right, so I'm gonna end it right there. Glenn, he laid it to Saagar, cause Saagar, like he sound like he's conflicted. Like it's simple as this. Like what Trump is doing is illegal. Like if you want to deport some people, some people like do it the legal way. But Trump, still Trump think he's God King, so he think he can do whatever he want. And the reason why it's not mass deportations is because judges are basically saying no, you can't, you can't, you know, that's a little out of bounds what you're doing. So